the difference between my last film, The World According to Yonbi, and this one, Toto and His Sisters, is for sure in the, most of all in the form. While the other film was working very much through a relationship between the filmmaker and the subject, and emotionally the story developed based on a relationship that you feel as a viewer, that there is one. You know, I was somehow the filmmaker who would ask you know, this man questions like how did you feel, or what did you think about how life will be when you were my age? So I always try to compare it. He reminded me very much of my grandfather, and so it was something that I really wanted to find out about a certain generation, because they were the same generation, because my grandfather was the same, a big talent in everything, and he taught me, you know, storytelling and a lot of other things. He went with me to the cinema and would draw every story he would read in the evening for me. He would draw the characters and so on and so forth. It was more of a personal quest, let's say. In the case of Toto and His Sisters, from the very beginning, I had in mind since a long time, since I was in film school and I first saw Salesman, I had in mind that it is a much more interesting way of doing films, to do documentaries, but let them and the characters work like in fiction films, you know, make them bigger than life, and really let them tell their story without being visible as a filmmaker, like it is in a fiction film. You know, you have a direct contact between you as the viewer and the subject, and you can identify very much. And when I decided to go into this story, I knew from the very beginning I had this image of a completely observational film where I would not exist as a filmmaker. So that they really, you know, that the story develops for the viewer really in such a way that he can identify 100%, without having in between viewer and subject a filmmaker that is asking the questions, that is, you know, researching the world of the characters. Because I found it in many, because the documentary market is, you know, exploding. And I always find it too relaxing for viewers, you know, just to emphasize, not to emphasize, to have empathy with the, or sympathy with the characters, but it is a very secure position emotionally, you know, because there is this other guy who is actually the one involved. It's the filmmaker. You know, and as a viewer, so I really wanted to find a form where the viewer is completely absorbed and has no reflection upon the fact that somebody is doing now this film, somebody is, you know, researching now these lives, and I can watch it. You know, I wanted him just to be absorbed and to be emotionally, like when you read a novel. You know, that was the idea actually. It's a story, you know, about some kids that go through hell in a ghetto, you know, without parents, without nobody to take care of them. Therefore, in the editing process, it was for sure a twist that was very important at a certain point, because I would build up the story and you would go into the story a very you know, brutal somehow. And it was working, people were captured, but then a story, if you do this, you know, if you go into a story with kids or with anybody who is in a bad situation, you feel pity for them. You know, you really have first to get attached to them and to feel, let's say, their human strength before you confront the viewer with the worst situation they can deal with. And so in the editing process, at a certain point, I decided to start the film a bit smoother, so that I really have time to watch these kids in a normal situation, you know, like normal people. Because if you started in a situation where you would say like, these are animals, I mean, it's just, you know, no human being could live like that, then you risk just to have an emotion of pity towards them, you know. And pity in a story you cannot support longer than 15, 20 minutes, and then it collapses. So in order to have a long run story of 90 minutes, one of the big challenges was actually to orchestrate, you know, what and how you see about them, the hell they're going through, versus, let's say, things we in our normal life can identify with, you know, cooking, I don't know, learning, or so this was, yeah, one of the challenges, to orchestrate the scenes in a way that you really go with them without just being, you know, 10 meters away and just say like, these poor kids. Regarding feedback in Romania, I cannot say yet, because we will have the premiere on the 15th of December. So after that, I think the waves of you know, hatred and appreciation will come. I'm sure about that. But in terms of how I address this obvious theme that they are Roma, I didn't. I wanted to avoid any discussion about it, because for me, it was not important what they are, and it was also, when I researched the whole story, I realized that they are actually, these kids and the generation of these kids are actually nothing. They don't belong to any culture, because they don't belong to the Roma culture, they don't speak the language, and their parents never teach them, let's say, anything that has to do with Roma culture. And they also live outside the Romanian society, so they are really, you know, like from the moon. They are really nobody's people. They have no education, no culture, and no identification. You know, because they not even have real contact with Romanians yet, because they are very young. You know, they didn't really step outside their ghetto. So for me, it was very important actually not to mention a single time that they are Roma, because it didn't matter actually what they are. And so there is, nobody says in the film that they are Roma, and I realized when I screened the film in different countries that not everybody gets it, that they are Roma, you know, because they don't know, are the Romanians a bit darker, you know, so they don't really get it, and it's not important. But another important thing for me was to make the viewer, even if he knows, even a Romanian viewer, he knows that they are Roma, to make him just forget about the fact that they are Roma. You know, I just stay with them in situations where you cannot but try to, you know, like them in a way, you know, because they have struggles. And what let's say my highest hope is that some of the people that maybe be racist see the film, and only after the film, when they wake up from the dream they were in, realize that they really felt emotional for some Roma kids that normally they would just kick in the street when they come to them to ask for money. And what I also hope is that maybe, you know, the next time when you stay at the traffic light and a little kid comes to clean your window, that you remember the film, and you remember like, this is a guy like Toto, but maybe he's not just this kid that has no chance and is a loser and is born, you know, the stereotypes, is born as an idiot that will do nothing else than beg or steal, or, you know, and you start to think about the fact that everybody has a story, and because of everybody's story, he develops in a certain way, you know, because the film shows that with the mother, you know, the mother, it's already much too late to change her, you know, because we have in Europe this whole discussions about how to change them, how to integrate them, which I personally think is useless, because you cannot ask from people that are, let's say, older than 20 and have already life patterns that are so strong, you cannot change them and tell them, you know, it's like somebody would come to us and say, we have to dress differently now, we have to do different things now, you know, you would not do it. You know, step out of your normal life. And that's what the film is also showing with 3 kids at 3 different ages. Toto is still formable. You can still, you can still give input, and something nice will happen with it. Andrea is already a bit late already, because she never went to school, she never learned, so her brain would not really adapt to learning, you know. And Anna, the older sister, is just too late. She's 17. She has been in this whole pattern of a life of drug dealing and you know, positioning oneself as really outside the society, and you just have to get what you get if you want to survive.